Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the final session for today. Over to you, Maddie.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Well, we've made it. How's everybody doing? Are you still all with us? I hope so. Um, just a reminder, you can use the chat on the right side there. And if you have any questions, do put it in the Q&A session, and then we can ask those questions at the end of this session. And this is our final session for the CPG Retail Day, which has been fantastic. I've had a really wonderful time meeting and talking and discussing, and you were the delegates who had some great questions and comments. So it is my pleasure to welcome all of you back, but particularly to welcome Charlotte Brown with her final session, very interesting, of establishing DAM best practices into the creative end-to-end workflow, something that should be important for all of us. Charlotte, welcome.
Thank you, Maddie. Hello, everyone. I'm Charlotte Brown. I'm the Director of Digital Asset Management at Clinique. Clinique is part of the Estee Lauder companies, and it's one of 30 brands. Clinique is a fragrance, beauty, and skincare brand that has a really rich history. I just started at Clinique, so I'm very new. I started in January. So prior to working at Clinique, I was working for Vineyard Vines and Coty, and then my background is in sports, entertainment, and publishing. What's been really nice about the previous companies that I worked in is when I joined, we were always in the beginning of the RFP process for either implementing a new dam, or some of the companies had just purchased a dam and we're looking to establish a process. So I've always joined a company at a nice time where we could really look at the content, how it was being created, how it was being managed, and then start to establish best practices and really engage with users to see what was working well, what wasn't working well, and what needed to be changed. So I've done file naming conventions, the metadata schema, establish user roles and permissions to ensure that the right people are seeing the content at the right time, onboarding new users, and establishing a DAM program that really fit the needs of the users to onboard them properly with user guides and a monthly DAM user training. Many of the times, it's the first time that the user has started to use the DAM. And it's nice to be able to onboard them, to share with them the ways that the DAM is going to benefit their roles, and also what kind of content is on the DAM. And it's also nice to engage users and welcome them and just make sure that they know who to ask questions to. What I found is that if the users don't know how to use the DAM, then they'll create their own processes. And it's just really nice to start to engage with users to make sure that they know who the correct point of contact is. And then also establishing the governance model, which I think is one of the most important parts of creating a workflow, is ensuring that the content is going onto the DAM and the right content is going onto the DAM. So what I've been tasked with at the past companies that I've worked with, and even at Clinique now, is that more and more content is being created. That's everything from key visuals to behind the scenes content, video, the key visuals, product shots, and swatches. So with all of that content, the users need a platform that's easy to use so they can search, share, and distribute the content. This content is being created faster and there's faster turnaround. So it's ensuring that the DAM can really meet that need. And we never want to be the point where content is being held up. Because it is a complicated process. So it's constantly looking at the DAM and our best practices to ensure that the platform is easy to use. And also the processes, because I believe that you can go with the best DAM, but you also need a process. And the benefits of establishing the DAM best practices into that creative workflow are, it's going to ensure that your content has that consistent metadata to increase searchability. So this way your content is easy for your users to search, share, and download. What I found is that when we didn't have consistent, best practices, or the metadata schema wasn't easy to use, required fields where we needed them to be weren't, so users were omitting information, is that increased email. You know, it's great that you can always have analytics, but email is so important to see, you know, how users are interacting with the system. So having that consistent metadata and making sure that the fields are easy to understand is really important, especially when you're part of a global company. And then that the files follow a consistent file naming convention based off of asset types. You know, different assets need different information. For example, product shots and swatches, you know, an EAN code or a UPC code or a SKU code may be important. But, you know, for the key visuals that have several products, it could be the product name that's important. And, you know, one of the other important things that's, you know, part of the metadata is that the content includes the usage rights. This is so important that the users know how to use the content, when to use it until, just to ensure that, you know, not in breach of any contract. So just having that, the usage rights, you know, at the time of upload is really important. And then all of this just enables your end user to access the content to drive sales, customer engagement, and really tell a story of your brand and ultimately drive that company growth. So what I've been working on in the past few companies that I've been working for is designing and identifying what are the steps in that end-to-end creative workflow. When I was first starting out in DAM, it was very just DAM oriented. So working with whether it was your global teams or the agencies just to get that content at the time when the final global content was created. You know, I started questioning, you know, are there steps more upstream that we could be looking at to put those DAM best practices so that the file names are named correctly without any special characters. That saves time depending on which DAM you're on, because you don't want special characters in the file names that can lead to some system problems. So, you know, that would take time to review it, review the file names, but also I've found that so many different teams interact with the content along the content creation way, and different teams have different metadata. So I started thinking, is there a way that, you know, once the global content was given to my team to upload to the DAM, is there a way to start to embed that metadata and really ensure that the content creators are using that file naming convention, and also that the file naming convention is easy. We definitely have had to make some revisions to our file naming conventions because it was almost like telling a story in the file name. And the reason why teams were doing that is because the DAM wasn't fitting the need. The metadata wasn't right. So they were putting essentially all of the metadata in the file name. And a file name really should just be a way for a user to identify what the content is and really referencing the DAM. So that was a really great use case of what needed to be in the DAM and how users were interacting with the content. And then that ultimately led back to the training. You know, when you speak to users, you can really adapt your training session to meet the needs of how they were interacting with it and just showing them the tips and the tricks. So what I've defined as the end-to-end creative workflow is everything from planning to the content expiring on the workflow and all of the steps that go, you know, in between. And planning can be anything from if you have a new product launch, or if it's an evergreen product and you want to re-engage your users, you know, how is the marketing team, it's usually the marketing team that's starting to plan that engagement with users or customers, and what do they want, and, you know, what is their outcome? The marketing team works very closely with creative, and creative is really responsible for like the creative execution and the storytelling of the products or the campaign, the initiative. And creative works very closely also with the production team. And the production team is the one that is booking the photo shoots, the location, the models, the talent, the stylist. So these three teams, they have so much information at the beginning of the content being created and the idea, that they're really great stakeholders to speak to really understand, you know, what that end-to-end, you know, workflow looks like. And one of the projects that I'm working on and very curious into right now, especially at Clinique, is how that content is being transferred right after it's being created, and where we can streamline that and save time. Is it a cloud-based solution? Right now, a lot of the previous companies too that I've been working at have still been transferring content on hard drives. And as you know, we're creating more content. There needs to be faster turnaround time so we can continue to be reactive, especially with that social content that's being created for social media. That's really being reactive to what's trending. So I'm looking into opportunities of how content can be transferred, faster. But then it goes into the selects and approvals process. What I've identified is that it's usually either the art directors, the marketing team. It's really a collaboration between teams who are selecting the content and approving it. Then it goes into retouching, and there's so many opportunities either for your DAM system to integrate with whether it's Photoshop, or if it's a video, Final Cut Pro, with the editing and retouching to streamline it. Because what I've also found, through going through this exercise of the end-to-end workflow, is that there's a lot of uploading to download to upload again. So I've been looking at our current workflow to see how we can streamline this. And every time I have a use case like that, it's always nice to engage your DAM vendor or your third-party partners to give them that use case to see how, if there's an integration that needs to happen. And that's what's really great about going through this workflow, is really to see how you can streamline the processes. And then it goes into the DAM system, which is either a DAM manager, or you'll have a library services team that will upload the content with the metadata, and then publish it, whether it's to a front end or instantly to your platform. From the DAM, then it kind of goes out, I want to say it's almost to the Wild West, but we're starting to understand how content is being used and who is using it through analytics. But what's great about the DAM is it allows your end user, as long as they have the right permissions, to distribute the content. And they could either be distributing it or localizing it. The companies that I've worked at, I've always been at the global level, but we do have local markets. So local markets can be anywhere in a country in Europe, Asia, Latin America. And what they're usually doing is taking that global content and driving reusage, which is great. So that keeps your company's brand identity and storytelling for consistency. And usually they'll localize either the text or the model, just to make sure it fits the needs of their market. So distribute and localize are just so important for all of that content that's being created, and then also having the analytics on the back end to see how the content is being used. And it's not even just seeing, right now of what's being, the keywords that are being searched, how people are searching. Is it filters, or is it through the search bar? But also starting to look at the numbers in terms of, the amount and your budget from, the content being created, and seeing how that's being used. I think that's a really great exercise to start to measure the numbers between content curation and usage. And then it goes into the expiration workflow. So usually if it's a model, or depending on the asset type, it will expire within a year, 2 years, 3 years. But for some of our product shots and swatches, that doesn't expire. But that expiration workflow is really important to make sure that the content is being taken down, also within that time frame. So usually you can start to warn users that have downloaded the content 6 months prior to it expiring. And then also content is now being streamlined and integrated into other platforms like PIM. So DAM really is this connector in this content ecosystem that is so important, and that really drives the message of why you need to have best practices and ensure that the content is going in correctly to the DAM, because then it goes through distribution, localization, other integrations of systems, and then ultimately it can expire. So how to integrate these DAM best practices into the creative workflow. So when I'm in a new company, or we're really starting to look at the end-to-end creative workflow, I've broken it out into 3 steps, which is from the planning. So that's meeting with your stakeholders, through implementation, and then the post-launch and the support process. So planning to me is probably one of the most important stages. This is where you can start to engage with your stakeholders, and it's stakeholders that are whether they're in the marketing and they're starting to plan for the product, or the creation or the content creators, even the end users too, understanding how the content is being used after it's on the dam. Understanding and engaging with these users and just getting their feedback is really important, because then what you can start to do is start to map out who has the file information, the metadata, who is naming the assets. So you really understand where you can start to insert those best practices, and then you can assign an owner to it. This is a really great mapping exercise, and a really nice way for you to engage with your users. Many times when I start this process, the users or the process is broken. So it's a really nice way to start to engage with your users and make sure that you're building a platform that really fits the needs of the users. I try and run it like a democracy too. And then, also looking to see, is there an enhancement that's needed in the dam? Is there a new platform that's needed, like a cloud-based storage solution for that pre-work in progress content, as we're trying to build a content ecosystem? And then after planning, and you feel really, or I sometimes feel really great about the process, and I've aligned with users, and people really see the business need and how it's gonna help them. Then you go into implementation. And when I launch a new system or a new process, you can always go through the test and learn phase, which is really nice to get people, comfortable with using the process, provide feedback before you go with the full launch. And then also you can phase in and phase out processes. And it makes people comfortable that nothing's gonna break, and that there is this trial run. And sometimes what I've done too is launched a new process with either a larger brand within the company, a smaller brand, or even a group. And that just ensures that you're getting the right feedback, that people are on board. And then the last step with implementing new processes is the post-launch support. So having a platform or a ticketing system, whether it's within your company or a third-party vendor, or maybe even a group email, where your users can provide feedback, and you can always send comms, a communication plan based off of the launch, and just make sure that people know that there's an update to the process and can provide their feedback. Because you always want to know what is working well, so you can continue to adapt. And then again, you can always phase in and phase out processes. And lastly, usually when I'm launching these processes, sometimes not everything is ready at launch. So you can go with your minimal viable product, but you can also, have a post-launch roadmap. And that's always nice to have. So this way you can spend a little bit more time developing, whether it's an enhancement on the platform or onboarding, a new user, a new group, just to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with the new best practices. But the last thing I just wanted to touch on is in the planning phase, you can identify, who has that primary and secondary metadata. What I found is that a lot of the times it's the on set, the photographer or the digital tech will have that information, and they can embed it into the file. And that's a really great opportunity for you to meet with your dam vendor and see if you can have that embedded metadata imported at the time of the content being uploaded to the dam. So this way it's less work applying that metadata. So that is everything about how to integrate the dam best practices into your creative end-to-end workflow. So I'll hand it back over to Maddie, who's been monitoring the questions.
Yay, Shada, thank you. That was fantastic. Wow. It's, we could just say this is close to being the damn Bible Because no matter what industry you're in, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be retail, it doesn't have to CPG, it doesn't have to be entertainment. Those principles still apply all the way across. So thank you. That's been really helpful. I have a couple of questions that were given to me. And one of them is interesting. The question is, in a large multinational company like Estee Lauder, do you have DAM managers that manage each brand on its own? Or do you have one like sort of corporate overseer DAM that goes across all brands?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I love the way that Estee Lauder is set up. They are set up where we have a global DAM team, and that DAM team actually sits under IT, and they're responsible for establishing the governance model. And they also work with our third-party vendor on enhancements, patches, integrations. So we have a DAM committee at a higher level, and then each of the brands within Estee Lauder has their own DAM team. Some of our smaller brands, it will be a slightly different job title, but we'll have a retoucher that also is responsible for uploading the content to the DAM. But Clinique, it's myself, who's the director of digital asset management, and then I also have a freelance digital asset manager that is engaging with our users and uploading the content to the DAM. But at Coty, it was done at the company Coty is also very similar to Estee Lauder, where it was the parent company to 60 beauty brands. And the way that they managed it was by division. And I was the head of one of the divisions. And then we used a team of library services to manage uploading the content. So there's different ways you can do it, and there's different organizations. I think it just depends on how your company is structured to find the right support model.
Well, do you have a personal preference of how you like to do it? I mean, you've had different systems and different companies. What's your preference of that kind of management?
Yeah, I really like, what we're doing at Estee Lauder is really interesting, and really looking at what is working well and what isn't. So it's a great time to be part of the company. I like the way Estee Lauder has it set up, where part DAM is in IT, and then part of it is I sit under the creative team. And at Coty, it was the same way too. And I think that's really important to have both IT and creative.
Yeah.
And then within that, I think it depends on the brand. I like the way it's set up at Clinique, where you have myself that's working very closely with the IT department on enhancements and workflow and engaging with users. But then you have somebody that's really more of a librarian, making sure that the content is being uploaded and reviewing everything with governance. So, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Another question is that you mentioned localizations. So do you use a multilingual taxonomy? How do you deal with the different languages or different character sets other than English?
Right now, all of our content is it's created globally in English. One of the things that we would love to do, and even at the other companies I've worked at, is launch having the local content back on the DAM. There's so many great opportunities for content research, not just at the global level and then localizing it, but having that local content also on the DAM, so the global team can also see the content. It does go through translation, so everything is in English, but we do, at the global level, we are starting to create some of the local content, but that's always been in the roadmap of something to use. But I think there's such value in having local content on the DAM, and that's something in our roadmap. I hope to have that, up within a year.
Right. Right. That's great. When I talked to you last, Charlotte, what was really interesting is that there's also a lot of local user generated content of people using your cosmetic products as a tutorial. And you found that really interesting and useful to see how not only just the users of your DAM, but how the consumers can also use the products.
Yeah, user generated content is, it's so fascinating to see how people are engaging with our brand and also using the product, and the engagement that they're getting, and just spreading the storytelling and the brand identity through organic social content.
Yeah, fascinating. And another question came in, and this is a little more specific, and this is specific about your creative workflow. Did you, in your DAM system and the workflow, did you configure in the DAM system any alerts or updates to the people that said, yes, well, this has been approved and now it's gone to the next step?
Yes. So within the DAM system, well, before content is published to the front end of the DAM, there have been initiatives of what is it? I'm sorry, blanking on it. But in terms of the approval process, to send comments, so this way everything is not through email. So there have been alerts that way to start to have alerts that way of updates that are needed. More on the back end, but on the front end, yes, we do have an expiration workflow, and when content does expire, we have a field called the usage expiry date. When that date hits, in the previous DAMs that I've worked on, users have received an email, usually 3 months beforehand, to tell them to start to take down the content. It's easier on e-commerce, but harder in print, depending on the print budget as well. But yes, we do have alerts set up on the DAM if there's been a change. There's also great features on the DAM where you can subscribe to an asset. So this way you can continually know when an asset has been updated. And what's nice about that feature is that the user is engaged with that image, as where sometimes when you get the asset expiration email, we tend to delete those. So always looking at ways to alert users, whether it's before the content is up on the DAM or whether it's about to expire.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much. So I just lost my train of thought. It's the end of the day here. Here's a new question that's come in. It says, you note that you like to share responsibility between IT and creative, with IT owning the workflow and tool enhancements. Right, makes sense.
Yeah.
To what? Where am I? A new thing just came in. So here we go. I'm sorry. What are the IT roles that exist at Estée Lauder to support the DAM?
Well, what's really great is that we have a SteerCo. And I think SteerCo is so important within IT, just to make sure that everybody that's involved with the content, whether they're in IT or on the brand level, are engaged. And then within that, our IT organization, they work and find third-party vendors to do the enhancements, the patches, make sure that everything is running. So I think that with IT, you just get the more technical aspect. And then with being on the brand level, you're engaging with the brand and creative, your stakeholders, and then you can take all of that information and those use cases and provide them to the IT department. And really, it's a great partnership because I feel like we're on the front lines and understanding how content's being created, and taking those. I always like to give use cases to the IT department and not try and solution. So this way they can find what fits the need, because really when you're working with a DAM platform, you want to go with as much out of the box functionality as possible and not try and customize it. So that's why it's a great partnership, to give them the use case of and why you need something, and then they can provide you with hopefully what's free and out of the box, or you can work on a custom enhancement. But the reason why I also don't like too many custom enhancements is that if you go with a system upgrade, sometimes it's not supported. So out of the box is usually the way to go when you can.
Yes, wise words. Well, we've run out of time. I want to thank you, Charlotte, on an excellent session. That was marvelous. You can, as delegates here, as you registered with DAM, all of the presentations are going to be made available to you. So you just go onto the site and you'll sign in and you can take a look and revisit any of the conversations, as well as some of the comments you can take a look at again. What a fantastic day, and what a great way to end. DAM today. DAM today. We've learned a lot. We've learned that DAM is a technology. that with the right configurations, you can use, you can unleash machine learning and artificial intelligence to even do some automation as image recognition matures. We also understood from the other session that that DAM is actually a process, and it's about your users and it's about your people, and you've got to get their buy-in immediately and be able to sell what's in it for them personally as soon as possible. And then with Charlotte, we learned that actually DAM is a discipline, that if you put your ducks in a row, you'll save yourself an enormous amount of heartache. But not only that, you will prepare the foundation that you can iterate and expand on. So thank you all very much. It's been a real treat to be with you today. Thank you for sharing all of your expertise and your knowledge. We want to also thank Henry Stewart, of course, our favorite people in the world. And we mustn't forget the sponsors here that help us get this to you. So we invite you now to catch up virtually with all of your friends in the lounge. Grab a drink, have a virtual hello. And then thanks again, everyone, for the inaugural first day of Industry Week. Tomorrow, there's going to be DAM for Media and Entertainment, which should be entertaining. So thank you all. I'm going to let you go now, and let's all meet at the pub, shall we? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.